Coming back here with Brennan Sims, having a good conversation about the Pistons here. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Brennan, because I do think that there's a couple reasons that the Pistons could be pretty strong going into the playoffs, because we talked about the style thing, but the depth has been a real plus over the course of the year. They've been able to manage that pretty well, and I think that's going to lead to fresh legs and guys maybe peaking at the right time, because Thompson has been great on defense. Yes, his offense is not the most consistent, but it's decent for his age. But I could see if he kind of unlocks that next level and finds a similar level of aggression. He just needs to be a little bit more aggressive like Duran, and then he could be peaking at the right time too, because he's always finding open spots on the floor. He moves well, he cuts well, he passes well. He does a lot of things well on offense. It's just like when he gets into that middle ground in the lane, he sometimes doesn't know what to do. Once he gets slightly more decisive, I think then his point total and his offense as a whole will become more of a weapon.
Yeah, I agree. With Asar, it's aggression, but also sometimes it's playing in the same spot that maybe Duran is comfortable playing. Like Asar is really good in the dunker spot. Like you say, he can pass, he can cut, and he can make decisions from there, and he can finish down there. But sometimes that's where Duran is. So that can kind of get mixed up sometimes. But Asar can definitely offset teams sagging off of him because he can shoot. He can offset that by cutting, making sure he always crashes and hits the offensive glass. He's one of the best offensive rebounders for his position. So that's another avenue he can always explore to, stay positive on offense and stay in transition. Just forcing turnovers and getting transition is turning offense to defense and turn defense to offense. That's another thing Asar excels at. So I know sometimes you can go through those periods where it seems like he's not necessarily engaged, and he might, not take certain shots that you think he should take. But that just comes with being a young player, trying to figure it all out, trying to figure out how to navigate with his lack of shooting at the moment. Hopefully, that can keep improving. The form looks okay sometimes in warm-ups, like you see the pregame videos, but you want to keep seeing the improvement on the shooting too. So even on the free throw side, you want to keep seeing improvement there. It's going up a little bit over the year. It's not where you want to see it, but you just want to keep seeing Asar improve skill-wise, shooting-wise, and keep staying confident and making decisions and being decisive.
Definitely. And that's one of the points that I wanted to make, because I know one of the things that people have been saying about kind of the playoff chances, it has been about, well, I think teams are just going to sag off of Thompson. I think one of the people I talked with talked about maybe the possibility of putting a center on Thompson, and then you're able to kind of take advantage of some other matchups. I don't really like that plan for another team. I'd like to see somebody try it, because I don't think it would be successful, because then you've got a lot of different counters that you can do. If you're the Pistons, you can then go the double big with Stu and Duran, and what do you do with those guys, and how do you guard them? The rebounding is relentless aggression, and I think they would get beat pretty bad on the boards. And Thompson, I think, as his confidence grows, that will get better. Like you said, there's some good things about the forum. They've got Vincent helping those guys. And I know Thompson and Holland are both kind of in that category, but Holland, because he's got that level of aggression, he might not have the body type or the fluidity as far as athletically that Thompson does. He does have that aggression, and you can see that he's kind of getting better as the season goes on, because he's great at going to the paint. He makes you make decisions down there, and he is improving at especially that corner three, because those three guys, those two, and then an older version of those two in Javonte Green, all three of them keep up that defensive intensity, but especially Holland and then especially Green have been sneaky good from the outside. I don't think Green has ever been regarded as a shooter, but especially in that one corner, I think he's 50%, and they've been able to at least keep defenses honest. That's really all you need, whether it's shooting from the outside or cutting, like you said.
Yeah, Javonte Green has been such a pleasant surprise. Like you just kind of thought he was like just a throw-in signing, like just a salary filler basically. But he has been impactful in his role, shooting 35% from three. But it just seems better than that. Like I feel like Javonte Green has made a lot of timely shots. And Ron, I mean, he's not getting a lot of push for it because he's a backup right now. But Ron has actually been one of the best defenders in the NBA, like just flat out, like not age-based, not for a 20-year-old, not for a second-year player. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. So he should get more buzz for all defense, but I understand how it goes for young players. And offensively, always excelling as a transition finisher. But like you said, the confidence has always been there with him. And he's not scared to let it fly at all from deep. So I do believe that he'll one day be a passable shooter. And in the playoffs, I do know teams will sag, but the Pistons had a game the other night where they made a lot of threes. Like, hopefully when teams do that, they can just make teams pay. I don't think the team will ever be a consistent three-point shooting team the way they're set up right now. But they do have capable guys that can heat up for a game or two, and then the defense on the other side can supplement that. And the greatness of Cade and Duran could overcome some of these challenges too. But back to kind of the dogs, the scrappy junkyard dogs, and Javonte Green and Ron Holland, and Asar too. Those three, you kind of throw in Paul Reed with that group too. Just so scrappy, and Paul Reed has been such a positive this year too. Great hands, great active hands. Can get a lot of steals, can get a lot of blocks. Can step up with Duran not being there or with Stu not being there. He's been an absolute gem this year so far, but yeah, their depth is another element why they might make a run because they have a lot of bodies they can use too.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Paul Reed because really the depth on this team has been incredible. I mean, you've got the whole Danis Jenkins thing and kind of coming in and being a guy that wasn't even expected to really play on the main roster except in relief duty if somebody got hurt. He was out of two-way, and he was ostensibly like the third or fourth point guard, but he led to them being able to trade Jaden Ivey and giving them some consistency at the back end. Then you've got a guy like Paul Reed that would be a backup on a lot of other teams, but on this team he's the third big, but when he comes in he plays very big. And I do think that all of that will help because I think there's two things. I think everybody's expecting, I know the rosters tighten up a little bit when you get to the playoffs. I don't think Bickerstaff's going to tighten up the roster too much. I think he might tighten up the rotation a little bit, but I think he's also not going to be afraid to say, okay, this iteration isn't working. Thompson and Holland are in foul trouble, what have you. I need some more ball handling. I've got Javonte Green mixed in, but I've got to get Danis Jenkins in. Or I need some offense off the bench, so let's throw Sasser in for a few minutes. Or I need to play bigger, so I'm going to work Reed into the rotation. Or this is one of the pieces I wanted to discuss with you. Or, hey, we need some more shooting. They have a guy that they essentially haven't even played yet in Kevin Huerter that I think will be able to do some similar things to Duncan Robinson, not the same way, but give them that shooter. I know there's been things made of his shooting splits the last year or two, but that's also on some Bulls and Kings teams that left some things to be desired. So I'm not too worried about that. I think getting him around Cade and Duran and all of that gravity on that team, I don't think that's going to be a concern. And then you're going to be able to get him in there and also have some spacing. So they have so many cards to play, more so than other teams, because usually it's a war of attrition once you get to the playoffs. And if it comes down to the healthiest team, you gotta kind of bet on them, because them, along with, OKC's deep, San Antonio's deep for being a young team, those are the teams that I could see making it through the war that is the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, and then them being so young, you kind of just bet on the youth too to kind of stay upright. And kind of circling back to Kevin Huerter, I do see a lot of people kind of touching on his shooting splits for the last few years, but I just always circle back to the spacing he provides. Like, he has that shooter's tag, and he'll have that forever. Like, that's never going anywhere. If he's on the scouting report, it's going to say shooter. Do not leave him. So even if he's not making shots, he still provides that, which is obviously a benefit for Cade and Duren. But yeah, JB has a lot of cards he can play. So it might come a time where Karis LeVert, there's been too many turnovers in a row, and you kind of still need somebody who can dribble, pass, and shoot. Kevin Huerter isn't known as a ball handler, and he's not a great one, but he can attack closeouts, and he is a solid finisher. So, and he will garner closeouts because, teams will attack. They will close out hard on him. They will stick him because he has that shooter's tag. So he might have a game in the playoffs where he has to step up, but JB is having a hard time finding minutes for him, and maybe it's because. Is it the defensive infrastructure that you're kind of worried about him fitting into? That might be possible. But, it's working with whatever Detroit is doing right now. And I know the playoffs is a different ball game, so you can't just bank on everything that's working now. You got to stay open-minded. But it's kind of working right now, what they're doing. And, it might come a time where Huerter has to play, but it might not. So we'll just have to see about that one.
Exactly. And I think for the most part, he's insurance for Robinson because most of the other players, although there's obviously a lot of valuable players on that team, if you look at some of the statistics with players being out, like I believe they're 5-1 in games that Cade doesn't play in. That's a pretty good statistic. Obviously, Danis got hot during that time, but the infrastructure held true. Same with Duren and Stewart because Reed has filled in so nicely. They had those games that they basically were doing all of the bench players, and Javonte Green was starting, and Paul Reed and Jenkins, and they played very well through that stretch. So I think Robinson is the one guy that I could see them kind of skipping everybody else and saying, okay, Robinson's out. We're not necessarily, we might elevate Jenkins and give him more minutes, but we're going to now throw Huerter in there so that we can have that spacing, can have that gravity on the court. The two guys, you mentioned the one name, but the two guys I want to talk to you about before we let you go are LeVert and Harris, because those were two names that were kind of bandied about in the trade deadline. I think Harris has been a consistent leader for this team and very important on and off the court, especially with his ability to just kind of go down and get a bucket and reset things. LeVert's been a little less consistent. You've seen some flashes. He's got scoring capabilities, got some backup ball handling capability. But I also think that the fact that those guys are usually pretty durable and haven't been overextended over the course of the year, they could come in handy down the stretch as well. So they're names worth mentioning.
Oh, for sure. Tobias is posting up, discounted 2 points, especially this year. Tobias has been amazing in the post and a great bailout option. You're not dependent on him to be the second option in Detroit. So I see a lot of people kind of referencing his time in Philly, about his play, like predicting his playoffs this year, but I don't think you can really do that. It's kind of different. He's playing a different role. So Tobias has been steady, great bailout option, like I said, from the post. And Karis LeVert, on the other hand, I know he can kind of be kind of shaky, like I said, with turning the ball over and not the most consistent shooter or scorer, but his game might have more value in the playoffs. I know it was a lot of times last year where we all thought, man, I wish Cade had another ball handler next to him. I know Dennis Schroeder is doing good right now, but he needs another ball handler. And we, kind of was expecting that to be Ivy, but now LeVert is, it's kind of that guy. Like Dennis is kind of the Schroeder for the playoffs, and Karis is kind of what Ivy could have been. Like he's going to be in that role. So I think that herky-jerky style might have a little bit more of an impact in the playoffs because ball handling is so much at a premium in the postseason. But right now it has been a struggle some games for Karis, but he will be fresh. Like you said, he's not like he was back in the day, like when he was playing heavy minutes. So he should be fresher headed towards the playoffs, him and Tobias.
It'll be interesting to see this crew in the playoffs here. I think that they're getting ready, and I think they're primed for a bit of a run. But, Brennan, we appreciate you joining us and talking some Pistons with us. Want to make sure to give you a chance to tell people where they can follow you here, and hopefully we'll have you on later in the season as well.
For sure. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Smoke Souls NBA. And you can read my work at Detroit Bad Boys. I do a lot of previews. I do some analysis, and looking to do some more analysis as we head towards the postseason.
It's going to be a fun postseason. Looking forward to reading that analysis and all the great work that you guys do at Detroit Bad Boys. Be sure to check them out. But appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Brennan. Thanks to Brennan Sims. Appreciate him coming on and talking some basketball here. We're going to turn our attention to hockey since the Red Wings have already had a game. They're back from the Olympic break, and they've already had a game today, so they kind of threw a wrench in the plans there. But Tony Wolak of the Hockey Writers will come on and do a little bit of a trade deadline preview for us. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Happy to bring this next guest on. We've been wanting to get him on actually the whole season here. We do rotate a lot of Red Wings folks on, as listeners of the show know. But he's had some other things going on in his life that have been much more important than appearing on Jethro FM here. So Tony Wolak, congrats on the family edition. And we're excited to talk some puck with you. As you probably remember from your previous appearances, we like to celebrate the thing of the day, and it is Kazimierz Pulaski Day. So my question is, do you eat Polish food? And if so, do you have a favorite Polish food?
Well, that's a great question to start off with here. And the answer to the first question is absolutely. And the food that I probably enjoy the most is gałązki. It's my grandma's recipe that's been passed down, and I can't get enough of them.
I swear I'm not playing into your wheelhouse or reading into your last name too much or anything like that. You don't have a ski at the end of your last name, though, like many of us. I don't, but my mother's maiden name ends in ski, so we're kind of hidden in the Polish ranks. So yeah, that's the obvious place to start, right? We got the trade deadline coming up. We already had a Red Wings game. It's, hey Tony, what's your favorite Polish food?
Naturally. Yeah, no ski in the last name, but plenty of Polish blood in me.
And that's good to know. This is a very Polish heavy station as a whole. We have a lot of Polish people working here, so you'll fit right in. But no, we appreciate you joining us. We got a lot to talk about. We obviously already had a game today. I caught up on that one as quickly as I could to try to be up on that. The main thing I want to do with you, though, is talk about the trade deadline, because that was the main kind of order of operations. But then I read an article on thehockeywriters.com that everybody should follow Tony and Devin and crew there, because it's great stuff. But I like the way you approached this trade deadline, because I've told people this a lot in terms of team building across all the sports. The key to improve a team, yes, there's a couple different ways to do it. I feel like the Red Wings had one approach in the offseason, and now you're kind of proposing a different approach in the trade deadline, which I do like the approach. In the offseason, they went for some value, primarily outside of Gibson, some value acquisitions where they were able to fill kind of the bottom roles with like a Bernard Docker. Van Riemsdyk has obviously worked out pretty well, but those guys were all supposed to slot fairly low. What you're looking for those guys is to at least slot in the line in the position that you want them to, and hopefully exceed that expectation. The other way to do it is what you're talking about for the trade deadline, which is go top down and say, okay, we're going to fill in a top six guy and then slot everybody else down and right size the rotation. That's usually the quicker way for success. Obviously, it's usually you're paying more for that asset or what have you, but that's the way to right size it a little bit quicker, because you're not going bottom up, you're going top down. So you had some good kind of proposals and ideas on that concept.
Yeah, in the past, Steve Yzerman has played it pretty conservatively with free agents and with trades. Looking back since he joined the team in 2019, he's only traded a first-round pick once and a second-round pick twice. And the first-round pick was used for the Alex DeBrincat trade, and one of the second-round picks that was used, both of those were acquired from another team. So it wasn't even Detroit's own pick. So yeah, they've typically gone for value in the past, given their prospects room to grow and not block them in any means from a higher spot in the lineup. But I do think we've reached the stage in the growth of this organization, especially under Yzerman's guidance, that it's time to start cashing in on those assets. The Red Wings still have a slew of draft picks coming up. The only one they don't have is their second next year, which was used in the John Gibson trade. Other than that, they are absolutely loaded in the prospect pipeline, and not all of those players are going to have a spot on the Red Wings. They have, a ton of depth up front. We've seen how well the Grand Rapids Griffins are playing with Michael Brandt-Nygaard and Nate Danielson and company down there. Most of these guys will play for the Red Wings, but some won't. And if they're not, then you might as well consolidate assets and acquire a top of the lineup player, whether that's a forward or defenseman, to improve your team now. Trading a bit of your future for the present.
Exactly. And I think you hit on a couple good points in addition to kind of that top-down approach. The consolidation of assets is something that not all the teams have the luxury of. All teams can do it, but it's what are you taking from? I know the Hughes trade was obviously potentially a huge deal, and I think they legitimately had some interest, but the problem with getting a guy like that and what it would have required is they were probably looking at guys that were already in the rotation at the Red Wings level, and although you're adding a very high-end piece to the top of his particular line and set, there's a lot of people that you'd be losing throughout that you wouldn't necessarily have replacements for, because those guys that are on the bottom or on the line below wouldn't necessarily be able to move up and provide the same help. So that's why the top-down approach helps, where if you are able to trade guys that aren't necessarily here yet and consolidate some of those assets that maybe are blocked or aren't necessarily you're basically playing out their potential with another team, because they've even had to do that at the main roster, getting rid of some guys, Berggren, that just haven't really fit great, and they need to find another home for somebody like that. I like the idea of doing that when you're maximizing the potential value, because I do think there's some pieces. You even mentioned one of the names that I've heard some rumors on. I know people are high on somebody like Nate Danielson, but he's also a guy that seems lost in the shuffle to a degree. Not that he doesn't still have time, not that he can't still develop into a very good NHL player, but that might be a guy that another team can be higher on, and you kind of sell, you buy somebody from another team that you know what the potential already is. The potential has been realized, and you sell future potential with Danielson and a couple other pieces.
That's right. For Danielson in particular, the Red Wings have Dylan Larkin, Danielson, and Marco Kasper down the middle, and it's going to stay that way for the next several years. I know there's also Andrew Kopp and Michael Rasmussen and JT Comfort, but if you're looking at just the younger players in that group, you could potentially have Larkin, Kasper, Danielson, Rasmussen for the next 5 years. Now, if the Red Wings decided, hey, let's include Danielson in a trade for, say, Elias Pettersson on the Vancouver Canucks, well, then first off, you're getting a center in return, but also you're taking out what's your third line center, and that position can be replaced through free agency. Or maybe Amadeus Lombardi steps into that role eventually. Or, in this scenario, Elias Pettersson maybe is your second line center, and Marco Kasper moves down to the third line. Suffice to say, they have lots of depth, and they have lots of options to replace some of that depth if they want to make a move. It's the same case for defense, especially the same case for the wingers. Plenty of talent there behind Lucas Raymond in the younger cohort with Michael Brandt-Nygaard and Carter Bear and Max Plant, who's having an outstanding season at the NCAA level. Dmitry Buchelnikov is going to come over from Russia at the end of his season, another outstanding player. And, of course, Carter Mazer on the Griffins, who is finally looking healthy. And all those players, If they're all on the team, great. But that's a lot of roster spots otherwise. And, some of those assets could be consolidated, and we take 2 good players or 3 good players and turn them into 1 great player. And with that, it makes your team better.
Exactly. And I'm now, they're going to make a move. That's pretty clear. I think they've got a lot of feelers out, and we talked about, the possibility of Pedersen and kind of that center side. I want to talk about the main side that has been the focus all year, which is the defense. That they've been on the verge, it feels like, of making a move for a while. So that I would think would be the other place. But we're going to take a quick break and then come back here with Tony Wolak of the Hockey Writers and talk about defensive possibilities and the season outlook for the Wings as a whole. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here with Tony Wolak, talking about the trade deadline and the possibilities for the Wings, because I do think there's maybe multiple moves in store here, because we talked about the center realignment and kind of taking some of those pieces, because we do try to cover a lot of the prospect side of things. We have folks here locally that cover the Griffins for us, being here in Grand Rapids, but we also talk to all you guys who cover kind of the international side of things and where these guys all are. You're talking about the guy coming over from Russia, and we've heard about a bunch of the guys kind of at the college level, the Plants and the Augustines of the world. There's a lot of guys in this pipeline, and not that I'm saying trade all of them, but you do want to consolidate some of the pieces, knowing what Yzerman has added, because I know it's taken a while. I know people are a little anxious about getting to the playoffs and the fact that it has taken so long. But what he has done in this time is he's filled what was a pretty barren cupboard before. And so now I think you can start to consolidate some of those pieces. And I do like the approach that I've seen from writers like yourself that they're talking about possible trades. I think the main things that they're looking for is somebody that's not necessarily on his way out as far as his career goes, and has some term to his contract, so they don't have to worry about the idea that they've got to re-sign a guy to a high contract. Maybe it won't work out. Maybe they won't be able to re-sign him or come to terms. But the one piece that has never made sense to me is they have had a clear need for defense. Ever since last year, we've been talking about it on the show. Pretty much every pundit has come on and talked about the defense. I got to think now is the time to realign those defensive pairings a little bit better and add in some depth here, even if you do still go out and get a center, because I'm not opposed to that. I think I'm now more thinking it might be both moves.
Yeah, starting on defense, I agree. I think there's value in adding depth for the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs and possibly beyond that. The one name that's been floating around over the past half week has been Tyler Myers of the Vancouver Canucks. He's a 6'8" right defenseman. He's played mostly a shutdown role for the team this year. Honestly, he's pretty much had the Ben Sherratt role for the Canucks, mostly starting in the defensive zone, tasked with facing top opponents every night. His stats don't look pretty because of that. If you're on a not so great team and you're given like the toughest deployment, your stats aren't going to look very good. That's just the reality of it. But the Red Wings wouldn't be acquiring him for his offense. They'd be acquiring him for his mean style of play, his shutdown ability, giving them another option on the penalty kill, and someone who can pair with Sherratt late in games. So once the trade drops down to 2 defensive pairs, Edvinsson, Seider, and then Sherratt and Myers per se, then you feel pretty good about protecting a lead late in games. Because again, Myers he can play mean. He's a willing shot blocker. Not an overly offensive guy, but definitely someone who could help the Red Wings. Now, he isn't the top name out there, but certainly can serve as an upgrade over someone like Jacob Bernard-Docker, who, to his credit, has been playing pretty well lately. But again, that depth is necessary. You go into the playoffs with 6, 7, 8 defensemen who are going to play. It's not going to be the same 6 guys every night. Injuries will pop up. Something will happen. You need someone who can step in, and Myers gives the Red Wings more depth at that position. Other names that have been thrown out there on defense, Justin Falk's name has been thrown out there because Steve Yzerman and Blues general manager Doug Armstrong do have a history together, but I'm not so certain he's the right fit just because the cost is relatively high for Justin Falk. He's also 33 and is signed for another year. I just would not be willing to pay the price for someone who you're getting for that short a time, and the team that's trading him away is asking for quite a bit in return, like first round pick plus for him. There's a fit, yes, but not at that price. Another name that's been thrown out there is Mackenzie Weegar on the Calgary Flames. Same sort of deal as Falk. A little older, signed for a few years after the season. The team is asking for a very, very high return for him. He would be a fit, yes, but is it worth the price? No. So if the Red Wings end up with more of a depth piece like Tyler Myers or Luke Shen on the Winnipeg Jets, that's fine. Nick Perbix on Nashville, who they played against today. These are solid players who are role players, but would improve the team nonetheless. I do think if the Red Wings do end up making a splash before the trade deadline, it will be at forward, though, and instead of on defense. That's just reading the tea leaves of who's out there, like what the supply is, and what the Red Wings are willing to part with for high-end players.
I do like the idea. I'm with you on that, and I do like the idea of adding kind of a big-bodied defenseman like you're talking about with Myers. It does feel like, sure, I'm sure they could use a very high-end, top-quality defenseman, but that top two, they're working well together. You need somebody that slots in below them, and the idea of Myers coming in or somebody like that's blocking pucks, playing heavy, I think that's the style they need, and that's where the game's kind of gravitating. There's a lot of big bodies being thrown around, especially after Florida did so well with their kind of average size being on the bigger side in general, getting a lot of those big bodies in there. So it'll ebb and flow the trends of the game. But I do like the idea of maybe going a little bit more splashy on offense and then just getting some of that depth, because for a team that does have a lot of pieces, it doesn't always feel like they have the depth in the right places. So consolidating some of those pieces that maybe are ill-fitting or maybe you can get rid of and trim from the bottom, and getting some depth in places where it's a little bit more obvious, like the defense. I do like how Bernard Docker has played, but they're kind of leaning on him a little too heavily maybe compared to what the expectation was at the beginning of the season. So getting another body to rotate in as you're making a hopeful playoff run seems like a wise decision.
Absolutely. And again, if the Red Wings are going to make a splash at forward, some of the names that have been thrown out there are Robert Thomas, and I mentioned Elias Pettersson before, but that seems more like an off-season topic rather than something that happens before the trade deadline. Other than those two, even Michael Bunting, who the Red Wings played against Nashville today, is more of a complementary piece for the top couple lines, maybe third line, but definitely provides value as someone who plays a little bit more physical, can be a little bit more mean, win puck battles along the boards. There's a fit for him on the team. Other than that, Igor Sharangovich on the Calgary Flames, him and Nazem Kadri could be fits in Detroit. Vincent Trocheck has been thrown out there as well. All the players that are on the higher end of the talent pool around this year's trade deadline, the Red Wings have discussed to some degree. Now, where they end up, where their offer fits in relative to the other offers teams out there are providing, we'll see what happens between now and Friday. But I can tell you that the Red Wings have done their due diligence. This is their first time buying under Steve Yzerman at the deadline. They are leaving no stone unturned. And from everything I've told, they've had conversations with just about every team about their players. So suffice to say, like, if something happens, great. If it doesn't get done, it won't be for lack of trying. The Red Wings still need to, do what's best for their long-term approach. And if there's no deal out there, Yzerman's not going to force anything, because that's not going to be helpful for the team next year or the year after or down the road.
That in some ways would be the most interesting result from just kind of a standpoint of how the team deals with it, because that was the big discussion last year, that they didn't make a move. It wasn't for lack of trying last year either. They were working on, I think, that Gibson move and some other moves that then didn't happen. They made the Gibson move happen in the offseason, but you also have to like kind of some of the moves he has made, not only the free agency moves where he's identified Van Riemsdyk and Bernard Docker and guys that have been a pretty good value for what he got them for salary wise and all of that, even if they do need some reinforcements with Bernard Docker and other guys. But Gibson is looking very good as that 1A goalie and given Talbot finally a little bit of reprieve, except not today, but most days. And so his ability to identify talent is looking pretty good, even in the Red Wings uniforms here. Obviously, he did a good job with a different team down in Tampa, but I do think they are going to not necessarily press, but I do think they're going to be encouraged to make a move, because I know they've been kind of going with the adage of, okay, play your way into being able to make a move. And I think the players have kind of lived up to that. And so now it's on management to say, okay, here, we'll give you a little bit of help for the stretch run.
Yeah, and they have a few more days to get something done. I do think the Red Wings they'll do something. There's a clear lesson learned from last year, and Yzerman has put it on the team this season to earn their reinforcements. And they've done that. They've had an outstanding season. And even though they're in a playoff position now, there are still needs, and we've talked about those. Scoring help, defensive depth. They have given Yzerman everything, all the confidence in the world to go out and get someone to make this team better so they can finally get into the playoffs. And I do think something will happen before the deadline. It just, at the very least, there will be a defensive defenseman acquired. If they can land a splashy forward, that would be great. But if we're playing conservatively, there will be at least one player brought in, and I'm guessing that's a defenseman.
Exactly. They can go for one of those kind of depth piece guys that you were talking about. But be sure to check out the articles on thehockeywriters.com. There's great stuff on there, trade deadline previews, some of the things that we've been talking about. Be sure to send them wherever else we can here, Tony, the podcast and social media, because I want to make sure people get a good chance to follow you here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's at Tony Wolak on X. Check out the Hockey Writers. I'll also have a podcast called the Flying Octopus Podcast with Evan Sabrin and Devin Little. Been with these guys for about a year and a half now, and really love the work we're putting out. So, give us a listen. Next podcast drops Saturday morning after the deadline. So thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on. And we've had and will have Devin and Evan on the show here too. And we'll have Tony back, but appreciate you coming on, Tony, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks to Tony Wolak. Appreciate him coming on and talking a little Polish food. We might even talk more Polish food. We've been talking pierogies in the break here with Mike, but we'll come back in studio and check in with MLB Mike. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Coming back here in studio with MLB Mike. He's working the phones here. I think he's trying to get a call in so he doesn't have to talk to me for this final segment. So it doesn't look like you got anybody, Mike. You're stuck with me for the final segment here.
Damn it. Damn it.
I know that's people's normal reaction to that. Yeah, we've been resistant to call-ins. We don't do a lot of call-ins on Jethro outside of Jeff's show. I guess on Saturdays he does some call-ins for the requests. On the music side, we do. Do you take call-ins for the Polka Pops?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we
there you
invite
go.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to hear a song, make a request, dedication to something or someone. Yeah. Please do.
I like that.
So, Polka Pops on Saturday and Sunday from noon to 3. And, same station, Jethro FM.
Exactly. I love the variety we have here, Mike, because I like that we have the sports lineup. Obviously, I focus on that, but I've been making sure to plug the rest of the stuff because we have the unique kind of music stuff and other things on the weekend, like Polka Pops, Polka Overtime. Jeff's got his all-request show. I always want to make sure to plug Conrad and Rowdy during the day because they're the two that carry us kind of during the day. But I like our variety. We lost the Grillin' guys, though. We don't have the Grillin' guys anymore.
They took a hiatus, I guess. Didn't see that coming, but that's the way it is. And good luck to them. And always enjoyed listening to their show. I'm not a big baker, cooker, griller, but they had some good stuff. Yeah, I don't know why they hung it up, but they did. So,
I got the feeling from Scott that they might be back at some point in time. But yeah, I know it was a popular show, and I think it was maybe just getting a little bandwidth back for them in general. But yeah, them, and then we've got that to show. I think it's on Saturday mornings. That's then recorded in Saugatuck. I don't know the name of the show off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Morning Grind. It's
yeah.
Called. Yep.
Because I just drove past you can actually see the Jethro sign and everything if you drive down there. I was in Saugatuck on business this week, and so I like how diverse our lineup is.
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, we're the Jethro theme is working hard to be your third favorite radio show, so or radio station, I should say. So yeah. If you give us a try and stick around, I'm guessing you'd like it.
Yeah, there's something for everybody in all of that because you've got the classic country during the day. Conrad's been doing it for many, many years and very experienced, does a good show. Rowdy, integrates some humor into his format and he's got a good show. Then you got sports at night, and we try to give, I think between the 4 shows now, Steve's 2 shows and my 2 shows, I think we give a good variety too. That's been a focus as well as we kind of do different things for the shows. You got more local, and then we've got the national football stuff with the Shane show, and then the rest of the Detroit sports on this show.
It's kind of well-rounded, I guess. We have a little bit of everything for everyone. So if you keep this click down to your dial, you're going to hear something you like. You might not like it all, but that's okay. We're not everybody's taste. Keep it here, and there's going to be something you like.
Yeah, keep it here until Saturday at least, so they can listen to the Polka Pops.
Well, then there's that. Yeah, Steve has his show. Let's see, you're on Monday. You're on with Shane on Thursday, but then Saturday night is Steve with. Help me out here.
Saturday during the day,
right? But I mean, Saturday morning is the sports project. But, I'm drawing a blank here on Wednesday night with Steve.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's just the sports project prime time.
There you go, prime time. Thank you.
I just covered that one for him, and we did a very MLB friendly show because we literally did all MLB on that show, and we've got a lot. We've got a lot of baseball coming up. I wanted to talk about something in the baseball world because as you probably noticed, Mike, I almost always have a very nondescript shirt on. I just have a plain single colored shirt usually, but this time I'll probably have Mom take a picture of me so we can put it on social media. But I have this is a shirt that was made by Pitching Ninja. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but it is an account that they analyze pitching and they refer to it on the Tigers broadcast every once in a while. But there's a brand called RotoWear that they have different shirts that come out with the branded nature of Pitching Ninja and some of the other folks. But our friend Emily Walden, who covers the Whitecaps, she's going through another battle with breast cancer, and so this shirt was actually made for her to support her battle against breast cancer. We have a breast cancer survivor in studio right now with us, Mike, and it's a cause near and dear to everybody's heart. So I wanted to wear this in support of her and that cause here.
Yeah, I mean it's too regular. It just is. Sister-in-law, my wife's next in line sister, she's dealing with it. A good friend of mine from working years and years ago, his wife's dealing with it. It just, you hear about it too often. Lord willing, if we can find a cure for this somehow, some way, please, let's do it.
Exactly. You can't put enough funds and effort towards it. That's why I wanted to get this to specifically support her, but all the women and families that are dealing with this, because
I saw that shirt and I was wondering, I didn't realize, I mean, I saw pink. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but prayers out to her.
Definitely. And I mean, I remember that, Mike, I'm glad you brought that up about your sister-in-law, because I remember that you even got an emergency call on that during one of the shows.
Sure.
And you powered through and figured out another solution. But yeah, I mean, it can come at any time, and it can, there's, like you said, it happens way too often. It's way too frequent.
Yep. I hear you. Just praying for a cure every day. Hopefully in our lifetime we can find it.